Damaged Defenders by Sherza. Chapter 113. Steve and Hulk. It having been brought up, Steve decided that a second attempt to work with Hulk was in order. Since they were in Canada for the meet and greet with Alpha Flight, he just talked the team into staying the rest of the day rather than immediately heading back to the tower once the meeting was over. The meeting place was remote enough to work well as a training ground, which meant they didn't have to worry about finding a suitable place. Bruce, to Steve's surprise, was actually almost eager when Steve brought up the possibility.
The more he understands before the big showdown, the better he'll be able to fight with the team, even when the tactics get complicated. I mean, he adores Tony and Betty and is at the very least okay with the rest of the team, but
Bruce shrugged.
The more he likes you, the less likely he'll turn on you if someone really upsets him or whatever. So, 2 very good reasons to give him as much practice as we can between now and then.
Once Alpha Flight was definitely out of the area, the team gathered near the jet's ramp. It was a bit risky introducing Hulk to the jet. He had really bad associations with vehicles in general, never mind the flying ones. But necessary. He needed to understand that this vehicle, at the very least, was not a threat to him. If all they could do was get him to tolerate its existence enough to not smash it, that would be enough. Ideally, Steve hoped they'd be able to convince Hulk the jet was a safe place. Somewhere he could go if he was being hunted by idiots after a fight, and more importantly, somewhere to bring an injured teammate. Above and beyond that, they didn't have much time to acclimate Hulk to things. Less than 50 days at this point, if Bruce let Hulk out once a week. Less than 2 months to teach Hulk to work with the team, to understand at least a little the world around him, so he didn't attack things that didn't deserve to get smashed. It was a tall order. But Steve had managed tall orders in the past. He'd manage this one too, especially since he had an entire team to help him manage it. Steve turned away a little to give Bruce some semblance of privacy while he stripped out of his shirt, shoes, and socks. Bruce handed the little pile off to Remy, who happened to be nearest him, and then padded about 30 feet or so out away from the jet. Watching the transformation process was both fascinating and made Steve want to cringe. In one aspect, it looked almost ridiculously easy, smooth, and effortless. A near instantaneous swelling, for lack of a better word to use. Despite that, part of Steve couldn't help but think transforming had to hurt, regardless of how smooth and painless it looked from the outside. Just like at their first training attempt, Hulk came out with an eardrum-bursting bellow. That first time, it had sounded of nothing but rage to Steve's ears. After the subsequent interaction with the big guy, not to mention working with him to hit the Von Strucker's castle, Steve wasn't so sure anymore. It might just be his imagination, or him projecting what he would feel in a similar situation onto the Hulk, but he could swear there was fear, or at least apprehension, in that bellow. Then Hulk swung around and spotted the team. And the jet. He sort of froze up, like he was torn between 2 very different reactions. Maybe more. Steve stepped forward. "Hi, Hulk." Hulk brightened. "Cup!" He glanced around, then gave the jet a dirty look. "Hulk smash?" he asked. Or Steve thought, after a second's consideration, more like offered. As in, offered to smash the jet. "No smashing today," Steve told him, then pointed to the jet. "We wanted to show you this. I know you don't like flying stingies," Steve said, using Hulk's wording for flying craft, regardless of its actual make. "But this one is good. This one brings team to where things need smashing." It felt more than a little odd talking so simply, but Hulk just didn't understand more complex words and phrases. Yeah, he'd get there. In the meantime, they'd meet him at his level. Hulk snorted and gave the jet another dirty look. He was clearly not at all convinced Steve was right. "It's safe, I promise. You can come over and look if you want," Steve offered. And therein lay the chancy bit. They wouldn't know until it was too late if Hulk would decide to preemptively smash the jet to keep it from hurting him. Hulk eyed the jet, then Steve, then the rest of the team. He shifted from foot to foot a few times, then finally edged closer. It was deeply disconcerting to see Hulk, of all beings, acting like a skittish cat. It wasn't until Hulk got closer to the team that he seemed to realize they'd picked up new members. Steve was actually impressed given how many Avengers there were and how unaccustomed to meeting people Hulk was that he picked up on the additions at all. Peter, in his old uniform for now, Tony was working on something that would actually protect Peter in a fight, didn't give away much in the way of reaction. Bucky, on the other hand, totally looked gobsmacked. Not that Steve blamed him. Hulk singled the two of them out. Who this? To his credit, he sounded more curious than anything else. Steve walked over and put a hand on Peter's shoulder. This is Spidey, he said, opting for the easiest version of Peter's code name he could think of. Then he reached out and touched Bucky, who had slid into his spot at Steve's left shoulder. And this is Bucky. They're both team. They want to help smash things. Perhaps not true in Bucky's case. Given how badly he'd done after the castle raid, he might get opt to not fight. If that was so, Steve wouldn't force the issue. Explaining all that to Hulk, though, was an exercise in futility. As a side note, Hulk's curiosity about the new people was leading him to at least tolerate the existence of the jet. So Steve was already calling this one a win. Hulk no like flying stingies, but team is good. Team is nice. Flying stingy, not flying, or being stingy. Cap says it is good. Hulk not so sure. Then Hulk see new people. New team? Uh-oh. Both new team scared. Hulk not like that. Team not be scared of Hulk. Hulk remembered first meet and some team being scared, but not being scared after a little bit. Hulk sit down. Be smaller. Skinny little puny, Cap says is Spidey stops being scared fast. He do like Clint and climb Hulk. Sit on Hulk's shoulder. Oh man! You are awesome! This is awesome! I mean, seriously, awesome! Hulk laugh a little. Spidey sound very... Hulk not no word, but is good thing. Then Hulk remember he can ask for word. What word for jumpy happy? Hulk asked, pointing at Spidey to make it clear what he meant. Excited, Cap tell Hulk. Cap sounds like he wants to laugh too. Bucky not stop being scared. Bucky hide behind Cap. Hulk not like that. Hulk hunch up, trying to be small. Cap frown a little when Hulk do, then look over at Bucky. Then he look back at Hulk. It's not you he's afraid of, Hulk. He was hurt bad by very bad men. You remember the big place we smashed? Hulk nod. He remember big stone place, lots of punies and their guns. That is word team teach Hulk for stingies. Well, those were some of the people who hurt Bucky. That's why we smashed. Bucky isn't used to not being hurt yet. Hulk blink. Is like Hulk, he said. Yes, he is, Cap agree. Hulk scoop Bucky up. Hulk smash bad men. No let hurt you. It was all Steve could do to keep himself from trying to rescue Bucky. Not that he thought Bucky was actually in danger, but Bucky was not especially thrilled with getting scooped up by Hulk from the look on his face. Also, the tone in Hulk's voice when he promised to protect Bucky had every hair on Steve's body standing on end, because that tone promised extreme amounts of pain for anyone dumb enough to present a threat to Bucky. Steve was more than willing to let Hulk carry out his threat. Hydra was still a danger to Bucky and would be as long as they existed. Steve had zero compunctions with sicking the big guns on any Hydra agents that got any bright ideas about trying to reacquire their assets, and the guns didn't come too much bigger than Hulk, at least not Earth native speaking. Thor and Loki had Hulk beat, but they were the only ones. Bucky tucked safely in Hulk's grasp, and Peter perched on one shoulder. Hulk finally investigated the jet. He walked all around it, even poked, surprisingly carefully, at a few places. He found the gun ports and gave them dirty looks, but didn't try to smash them, probably because he wasn't being shot at. Eventually, he came back around to where the team was standing by the ramp watching him. He peered into the interior of the jet from about 10 feet away from where the ramp touched the ground, but flatly refused to get any closer to the ramp, never mind a step inside the jet. Even if Hulk hadn't been, well, Hulk, Steve wouldn't have pushed the issue. Just getting him to accept the thing's existence was enough. They could work on getting him to step inside another time. It took Hulk nearly an hour to turn Bucky loose. Once he had, Bucky promptly retreated behind Steve, trying not to look as ruffled as he probably felt. They spent another hour answering Hulk's questions and helping him with his vocabulary. As fast as he was picking things up, Steve had high hopes that Hulk would be able to understand normal speech after 4 or 5 more sessions like this. Talking normally might take longer, but that was hard to judge. Hulk's difficulty using multiple syllable words might just be an after effect of his lack of vocabulary in general. That done, they moved a bit deeper into the woods and introduced Hulk to hide and seek, otherwise known as teaching Hulk how to track and pursue someone if such a thing became necessary. And that's when they found out how frighteningly stealthy a 12-foot tall behemoth was capable of being. For all Hulk was really loud when attacking or being attacked, he could be almost as sneaky as Natasha when he needed to be. Which, somehow belatedly, Steve realized they should have already known. Because Hulk had, when pursued by Ross, disappeared into the ether repeatedly while still Hulk. Also, forests were, if not a native environment, then a preferred one that Hulk knew how to navigate with ease and precision. It was both awe-inspiring and utterly terrifying to watch, or not as the case may be, Hulk ghost through the trees and bushes, barely disturbing a thing and making virtually no noise, only to pop up right in someone's face, grinning hugely to bellow, "Tug!" The only person on the team he didn't scare the short hairs off of was Logan, and Logan had an unfair advantage in being able to smell Hulk coming. Even then, Hulk still managed to tag Logan. He just didn't scare the crap out of him by coming out of nowhere. Steve was busily trying to figure out how to replicate this in an urban environment, because that was where most of their fights would happen, Thanos' invasion aside. Doing so would be tricky, though. Even if Hulk didn't damage anything during the game, they would first have to convince someone that no damage would be done. Not an easy endeavor when it was the Hulk involved. Not impossible either, just difficult. Maybe they could work something out with Asgard? Their buildings were sturdier, and they were a lot more cavalier about damage in general. It was something to think about, at any rate. Finally, though, the sun was setting, and it was getting harder and harder to see. "Okay, Hulk, we have to head back home now. Can you let Bruce come back?" Steve asked. "Hulk play soon?" Hulk asked. Steve smiled. "Of course you could play again soon," he reassured. Hulk huffed, then nodded. "Hulk, go," he said, and promptly folded in on himself. Tony, who had positioned himself close to Hulk, quickly closed the remaining distance and caught Bruce before Bruce fell on his face.
"Hide and seek, Stevie?" Bruce slurred. "Really?"
Steve laughed. "It worked," he pointed out. "Also, Hulk is terrifying in stealth mode. I did not know he had a stealth mode." Bruce huffed a laugh.
"Need to pay attention, Steve,"
he grumbled. At least he wasn't slurring this time, just sounded tired. Steve rolled his eyes. And we got him to at least tolerate the jet's existence, which is good. At least he'll be less likely to smash it if he ever runs across it during a fight. Which, depending on where they parked it, was always possible.
"Surprised about that,"
Bruce admitted.
"He ate some."